Hi, today I'm going to talk to you about the four moves, also called SIFT, which is a strategy you can use to evaluate information. First, let's talk about information literacy. An information literate person is able to identify information resources, locate these resources, evaluate these resources for credibility and accuracy, and then turn around and effectively use these resources to synthesize something new. Information literacy and information evaluation aim to avoid disinformation. Disinformation is often information that is purposefully spread, that is false, that is meant to change someone's mind or manipulate people into believing something that isn't true. Evaluation also aims to avoid misinformation or just inaccurate information. Oftentimes, misinformation is just information that is spread where the methodology is incorrect. People don't understand the conclusions and thus interpret it falsely, or it's just bad science. So why does it matter? Information can be used for manipulation by bad faith actors. An example of this is ISIS, white supremacist groups, or other harmful conspiracy theories, which often misrepresent information as a tool of radicalization. In the academic world, the quality of an argument or its research is defined by the quality of information that it uses. Therefore, it's very necessary to use quality, credible, accurate information. The internet age produces an immense amount of information that comes at you increasingly rapidly. It is now very important to know how to accurately filter information that we consume to make sure that it's useful, credible, or even correct. Before we get into SIFT, we should probably talk about two different types of sources that you may encounter. The first type is a popular source. This could be a news article or an article you find on a website. Usually, these are written by journalists and are for the general public. They come out daily, weekly, monthly, and are usually made up of interviews, quick facts, and stats. You might find one of these articles in the New York Times, Washington Post, or any other number of newspapers. The other type of source where you might find information would be a scholarly source. These are usually created by academics, researchers, scientists, and experts. These, most often, are reviewed using a peer review process where two to three experts in the field go over the reporting to make sure that the methodology, the results, and the conclusions are accurate. These come out every 6 months to a year, which is a lot less frequently than, say, a newspaper article. And generally, these are theoretical research, original research, or scholarly works such as reviews. An example of this might be an article from JSTOR or another database such as Science Direct or Academic Search Complete. Either type of information source is useful in its context. Scholarly articles are generally more credible because they have undergone a review process, and the methodology which was used to come to conclusions is generally more rigorous. Popular sources are also very useful, say if you need quick information about an event that just happened. But when using popular sources, it becomes very important to take some strategies that will allow you to evaluate the credibility of the source itself and the claims within the article. One such strategy that I'm going to talk about today is the four moves, also known as SIFT or SIFT. These stand for stop, investigate the source, find trusted coverage, and trace claims, quotes, and media back to their original context. When When you stop, you are trying to understand what your source is before you read, use, or share it. What is the reputation of the website, the news site? What is the reputation of the journal article you're reading? One way that you can stop is to use popular fact-checking sites such as Snopes.com, PolitiFact, or Wikipedia to verify whether the claim that you are reading in the article has already been fact-checked and analyzed. You could also run another web search such on Google or Yahoo to see what other types of articles also exist about the claim that you are reading. Stop was also formerly known as the first move called checking for previous work. Next, if you still can't figure out if the article is credible through stop, you could investigate the source. And again, you're trying to understand what you're reading. So in order to do that, you could investigate the author or the person who wrote the article. You could investigate the publication or the journal that you are reading or a newspaper. And you could investigate through associations that might exist with the article. You're trying to understand the expertise or the agenda of your source. For an example, does the source have an ulterior motive for reporting what it does? By looking up the source or investigating the source, you're checking the credibility of the message. Finally, in this stage, you could also check the sources of your source. Usually, most information is not original. It comes from other sources elsewhere. So go back and try and check where the information in your source is coming from. This move was formerly known as going upstream of a source. Next, if those two steps still don't lend any truth to credibility, you could find trusted coverage. So basically, when you try to find trusted coverage, you are trying to verify the claim within the source. You could look elsewhere to see if many people agree about the claim in the source, or is the claim heavily argued about. One way you can do this is to scan multiple sources and try and identify what the expert consensus is, or are there varying views? You don't need to agree with the consensus, but to fully understand the issue, you should probably know what the consensus is. It helps to know what others are saying about the topic or subject. Finally, it's useful to find out what are the most trusted sources, the most in-depth sources, and the most varied sources on the topic or the field. Find out where the expert reporting comes from and try and see what they're saying. This move was formerly known as reading laterally. The last step would be to trace information back to its original context. If you've gone through the first 3 steps and you still don't know if the information you're reading is credible, make sure you trace back all the original claims, quotes, sound bites, or media clips involved with the source. You want to understand the original context from which these exist to ensure that you are not being manipulated, lied to, or just misunderstanding important details. If still in question, like I mentioned previously, check the sources of your source. Where did they find this information? Go back to its original context and see if you can get a better idea of what's going on. All said and done, if the source is still in question, maybe it's time to look for a new source, or to circle back to the earlier moves to recheck your information. This 4th move was formerly known as circling back. For more information about the sources that were used for this video, you can check out these links. SIFT comes from author Mike Caulfield. You can also check out his course called Check Please. This OER course will give you practice in evaluating information. Also, other interesting websites such as the EU Disinformation Lab exist, which talks about disinformation and how it's spread. Finally, Snopes, PolitiFact are useful fact-checking sites that you can reference. The last source recommended would be a handbook by UNESCO called Fight Fake News. Thank you very much. Hopefully you can practice SIFT in evaluating all of your information resources.